Today, I want to speak to you about 6 dangerous sins. Sins that can slowly destroy your life, your relationships, and your eternity. These are not just small mistakes. They are traps that can pull you further and further from God. And if you don't recognize them, they will take everything from you. Sins number 1, pride, the sin that blinds. Pride was the first sin ever committed. Before sin entered the world, before Adam and Eve disobeyed in the garden, pride was already at work in the heavens. The Bible tells us that Lucifer, once a glorious angel, was cast out of heaven because of his pride. He was not satisfied with serving God. He wanted to be equal with God. His heart was lifted up, and he convinced himself that he was greater than he really was. That same spirit of pride has been deceiving people ever since, leading them away from God and into destruction. Pride is blinding because it distorts reality. A person consumed by pride cannot see themselves as they truly are. They do not recognize their weaknesses. They ignore their sins and they justify their actions, believing they are always right. Pride keeps people from acknowledging their need for God because it makes them think they can handle life on their own. It makes them trust in their own wisdom instead of seeking God's guidance. It makes them ignore correction and resist change because they believe they already know best. Pride hardens the heart. It makes a person resistant to truth, even when that truth is obvious. The Pharisees in the Bible were blinded by their own self-righteousness. They believed they were holy, that they had everything figured out, that they knew God better than anyone else. But when the Son of God stood before them, they rejected him. Their pride kept them from seeing the truth. It made them blind to the very salvation that was right in front of them. This is what pride does. It makes a person unwilling to admit they are wrong, unwilling to humble themselves, unwilling to change. Pride is also deceptive because it comes in many forms. Some people think pride only looks like arrogance, boasting, showing off, thinking you are better than others. But pride can also be hidden in more subtle ways. It can look like self-sufficiency, the belief that you do not need anyone's help. It can look like perfectionism, the refusal to accept failure or weakness. It can even look like false humility, where a person pretends to be humble on the outside, but secretly desires praise and recognition. Pride is not always loud and boastful. Sometimes it is quiet and disguised. One of the most dangerous effects of pride is that it leads to a fall. The Bible warns pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. A person who is consumed by pride may appear successful for a time, but eventually their pride will bring them down. History is filled with stories of kings, rulers, and leaders who were destroyed because they allowed pride to take over. They ignored warnings, they refused to listen to wise counsel, they thought they were invincible until they fell. Pride blinds people to their own weaknesses, and when they least expect it, those weaknesses are exposed. Pride also destroys relationships. It creates division between people because a prideful person refuses to apologize, refuses to forgive, and refuses to admit their mistakes. Pride leads to conflicts in marriages, in families, in friendships, and in workplaces. It makes people defensive, unwilling to listen, and quick to blame others. A prideful heart is more concerned with being right than with being at peace. It values reputation over reconciliation. It values control over connection. This is why pride is one of the greatest obstacles to love, unity, and healing. Pride not only separates people from each other, it separates them from God. The Bible says that God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. A person who is full of pride cannot receive the grace of God because they do not think they need it. They rely on their own strength instead of trusting in Him. They try to save themselves instead of surrendering to the one who can truly save. This is why pride is so dangerous. It keeps people from repentance. It keeps them from turning to God. It keeps them from seeing their need for salvation. Pride also robs a person of their true potential. God has a plan and a purpose for every life, but pride keeps people from walking in it. It makes them stubborn, unwilling to obey, unwilling to submit. It makes them think their way is better than God's way. But pride never leads to true fulfillment. It may lead to temporary success, but it always ends in emptiness. No amount of achievements, no amount of wealth, no amount of recognition can satisfy the soul if pride is in control. Pride promises greatness, but it delivers destruction. Sins number 2, greed, the never-ending hunger. Greed is a hunger that is never satisfied. It is a desire that grows the more it is fed, a craving that consumes the heart and blinds the soul. Greed is not just about money, it is about power, possessions, status, and control. It is a condition of the heart that convinces a person that they never have enough, that they always need more, that what they have is not enough to bring them happiness. But greed is a liar. It promises fulfillment, but it only leads to emptiness. It promises security, but it only breeds fear. It promises joy, but it only produces misery. Greed is deceptive because it often starts small. It begins with a simple desire, a little more money, a little more comfort, a little more recognition. There is nothing wrong with wanting to improve one's life, with working hard, with achieving success, but greed takes that desire and turns it into an obsession. It whispers, just a little more and you'll be happy, just a little more and you'll be secure, just a little more and you'll be satisfied. But no matter how much a person gains, the hunger never ends. What once seemed like enough quickly becomes insufficient. The person who once dreamed of having a comfortable home now dreams of a mansion. The person who once wanted a stable job now wants to be the richest person in the room. The person who once wanted recognition now craves power over others. Greed feeds on itself, growing stronger with every gain. Greed is dangerous because it blinds people to what truly matters. A person consumed by greed begins to see everything and everyone as a means to an end. Relationships become transactional. Time with family is sacrificed for more work, more deals, more success. Morals and ethics become flexible, bent in whatever direction leads to more profit. A person driven by greed will justify dishonesty, manipulation, and even betrayal if it means getting ahead. They will sacrifice their integrity for a little more wealth. They will compromise their character for a little more power. They will ignore the needs of others because their own desires consume them. History is filled with stories of people destroyed by greed. Kings and rulers who had everything but wanted more, only to lose everything in the end. Businessmen who built empires but lost their souls in the process. Families torn apart by the fight for inheritance. Friends who became enemies over money. Greed does not just take from the one who is consumed by it, it also takes from those around them. It destroys trust. It breaks relationships. It turns love into rivalry, loyalty into betrayal. The Bible warns that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. It does not say money itself is evil. Money is a tool, neither good nor bad. But the love of money, the obsession with wealth, the never-ending hunger for more, that is where the danger lies. A person who loves money will do anything to get it. They will lie, cheat, steal, manipulate. They will oppress the weak, exploit the poor, and ignore the suffering of others as long as they can increase their wealth. They will do as they are and live as they please as long as they can increase their wealth. Greed hardens the heart, making a person indifferent to the pain of others. It makes them believe that their success is all that matters, that their gain is more important than justice, kindness, or mercy. Greed also breeds anxiety and fear. The person who is never satisfied is also never at peace. They're always chasing, always striving, always afraid of losing what they have. They cannot enjoy their wealth because they are too busy worrying about getting more. They cannot rest because they are always thinking about the next opportunity, the next deal, the next investment. Their mind is consumed with the thought of gain, and their heart is burdened with the fear of loss. They trust in their riches to give them security, but wealth is never secure. Markets crash, businesses fail, money loses its value, and the things a person works so hard to gain can be taken in an instant. Yet greed convinces them to keep chasing, to keep striving, to keep believing that just a little more will finally be enough. Greed is not just about money. It can take many forms. It can be greed for power, for fame, for influence. It can be greed for attention, for control, for success. It can be greed for material possessions, always wanting the newest, the best, the most expensive. It can be greed for pleasure, always looking for the next thrill, the next high, the next indulgence. It can be greed for recognition, needing constant validation, never feeling truly valued unless others are praising them. No matter what form it takes, greed always leads to the same place: emptiness. A greedy person is never truly happy because they are always looking at what they do not have instead of appreciating what they do. They are never truly satisfied because no matter how much they gain, it is never enough. They are never truly free because they are enslaved to their desires. They are never truly at peace because their heart is always restless, always craving, always hungry for more. Since number 3, lust, the silent killer. Lust is a silent killer. It does not announce itself loudly like anger or pride. It does not always come with obvious warning signs like greed or envy. Instead, it creeps into the heart, whispers into the mind, and takes root before a person even realizes what has happened. It starts as a thought, a glance, a seemingly harmless desire, but once it enters, it spreads like a fire, consuming everything in its path. What begins as a small temptation can grow into an obsession, an addiction, a destructive force that ruins lives, marriages, families, and even souls. Lust is deceptive because it disguises itself as love, passion, or desire. It makes a person believe that what they are chasing will satisfy them, that what they crave will make them whole. It offers pleasure, excitement, and escape, but in the end, it delivers pain, regret, and brokenness. Lust does not create connection, it destroys it. It does not bring love, it corrupts it. It does not fulfill, it leaves a person emptier than before. The world celebrates lust, disguising it as freedom, as empowerment, as self-expression. But what the world calls harmless fun often leads to deep wounds, shattered trust, and lives filled with regret. Lust is dangerous because it rewires the mind. What once seemed wrong starts to feel normal. What once brought guilt begins to feel acceptable. The more a person feeds lust, the stronger it grows. It creates an endless craving, a hunger that is never satisfied. One look is never enough. One experience is never enough. One indulgence is never enough. Lust keeps pulling, keeps demanding more, keeps leading a person further down a path they never intended to go. Lust destroys marriages. It makes a husband look at another woman instead of cherishing his wife. It makes a wife compare her husband to a fantasy that does not exist. It makes people believe that what they have is not enough, that something better is out there, that love should always feel like a thrill, like excitement, like a constant high. But real love is not built on fleeting pleasure. It is built on commitment, sacrifice, and selflessness. Lust offers none of these things. Instead, it leads to betrayal, infidelity, and broken families. It turns sacred relationships into temporary pleasures. It replaces deep love with shallow desire. Lust does not just affect relationships, it affects the soul. It changes the way a person sees others. Instead of seeing people as human beings with value, with purpose, with souls, lust reduces them to objects. It turns people into things to be used rather than individuals to be loved. It strips away dignity, replacing respect with selfish desire. Lust does not care about the heart, it only cares about the body. It does not care about the person, it only cares about the pleasure. And once it has gotten what it wants, it moves on, leaving behind emptiness, shame, and guilt. Lust also creates addiction. What begins as curiosity can turn into bondage. It can take hold of a person's mind, making them crave more, search for more, need more. Lust enslaves. It makes a person lose control, unable to stop even when they know it is destroying them. It clouds judgment, leading people into situations they never thought they would be in. It leads to secret lives, hidden habits, and double identity. It creates guilt that never goes away, a constant cycle of indulgence followed by regret. The deeper a person falls into lust, the harder it becomes to escape. Lust does not just impact individuals, it corrupts entire societies. It devalues marriage, destroys families, and weakens morals. It turns what is sacred into something cheap, what is pure into something polluted. It teaches people that love is only about feelings and that commitment is optional. It spreads through entertainment, through social media, through culture, normalizing things that once would have been unthinkable. It encourages people to chase instant gratification, to prioritize pleasure over responsibility, to seek fulfillment in things that can never truly satisfy. Lust also blinds people to the consequences of their actions. It convinces them that no one will know, that it does not hurt anyone, that it is just a private matter. But lust always has consequences. It leads to broken hearts, ruined reputations, unexpected consequences, and deep regrets. It takes a person further than they ever planned to go. What starts as a simple indulgence can end in complete devastation. What begins as a small compromise can lead to complete ruin. Lust may seem harmless at first, but it always comes at a cost. Sins number 4, envy, the poison of the soul. Envy is a poison that slowly destroys the soul. It does not announce itself with loud declarations or sudden outbursts. Instead, it creeps into the heart in whispers, planting seeds of resentment, bitterness, and discontent. It makes a person look at the blessings of others and feel dissatisfied with their own. It replaces gratitude with comparison, joy with jealousy, and peace with a restless longing for what belongs to someone else. Envy does not just make a person want more, it makes them despise those who have what they do not. It is not simply the desire for success, wealth, or happiness. It is the deep, gnawing resentment that someone else has it instead. Envy distorts reality. It makes a person believe that others have it easier, that life is unfair, that they have been cheated out of what they deserve. It convinces them that their own blessings are small, insignificant, unworthy of appreciation. A person who is consumed by envy is never satisfied because their eyes are always on someone else's life. They cannot enjoy their own successes because they are too busy measuring them against someone. They cannot celebrate others' victories because they feel like personal losses. Even when they achieve their own goals, envy robs them of joy, whispering that someone else still has more, still has better, still has something they do not. Envy has been the cause of countless betrayals, conflicts, and downfalls throughout history. It was envy that drove Cain to kill his brother Abel. Cain was not angry because he had nothing. He was angry because Abel's sacrifice was accepted while his was not. Instead of seeking to change himself, instead of looking within, he allowed envy to turn into hatred and hatred into murder. The first recorded act of violence in human history was fueled by envy, and it has not stopped since. Envy does not just affect individuals, it corrupts entire societies. It fuels division, turning people against each other. It makes people resentful of those who have more, rather than being inspired to work harder. It creates a culture of competition rather than cooperation, making people see success as a limited resource. as if one person's gain must mean another's loss. It destroys friendships, turning admiration into rivalry. It poisons workplaces, making colleagues sabotage one another rather than lift each other up. It even infiltrates families, pitting siblings against each other, parents against children, husbands against wives. Envy blinds people to their own gifts and abilities. It makes them overlook their own potential because they are too focused on someone else's. Instead of developing their own strengths, they waste their energy resenting those who have already succeeded. They do not see the hard work, the sacrifices, or the struggles behind another person's success. All they see is the end result, and it fills them with bitterness. But envy does not motivate, it paralyzes. It does not inspire, it drains. It does not push a person forward, it holds them back, keeping them trapped in a cycle of resentment and self-pity. Envy breeds ungratefulness. A person consumed by envy cannot see the blessings in their own life because they are too busy counting the blessings of others. They fail to appreciate what they have, always thinking that something else, something more, something different would finally bring them happiness. But envy is never satisfied. It is a hunger that only grows the more it is fed. The more a person compares, the more they feel they are lacking. The more they focus on others, the less they value themselves. Envy keeps a person trapped in a constant state of dissatisfaction, making them blind to the goodness that is already in their hands. Envy also leads to deep misery. A person ruled by envy is never at peace. Their mind is always occupied with thoughts of others, what they have, what they achieve, how they live. Instead of celebrating life, they live in a state of frustration and bitterness. They begin to resent people who have done nothing wrong. They distance themselves from those they once admired. They create imaginary rivalries, competing with people who do not even know they are in a race. Envy isolates. It makes a person bitter toward others and miserable within themselves. Envy, if left unchecked, can turn into hatred. It starts as silent jealousy, but over time it festers, growing into anger and resentment. It makes a person secretly wish for the downfall of others, hoping that their success is short-lived. It creates a dark desire to see others fail just so they can feel better about themselves. But no one who lives with envy ever truly wins. Even if the person they envy loses everything, they will still not be satisfied. Envy is a thief. It steals joy, peace, gratitude, and contentment. It does not just harm relationships, it destroys the person who carries it. Sins number 5, anger, the fire that consumes. Anger is a fire that consumes everything in its path. It starts as a spark, small, seemingly harmless, but if left unchecked, it spreads, growing hotter, stronger, more uncontrollable. It burns through reason, through relationships, through peace, leaving destruction behind. Unlike other sins that creep in quietly, anger often explodes with force, making itself known in words shouted, fists clenched, doors slammed. But even when anger is silent, when it hides beneath the surface, it is still burning. It smolders in the heart, poisoning thoughts, filling the mind with resentment, waiting for the right moment to ignite. Anger is dangerous because it blinds. A person consumed by anger cannot see clearly. They do not see the damage they are causing, the people they are hurting, the bridges they are burning. They speak without thinking, act without reason, destroy without realizing the cost. Anger makes people say things they can never take back. It makes them lash out at those they love. It makes them hold on to grudges long after the moment has passed. It turns minor offenses into major battles. It distorts reality, making a person believe they are justified, that their rage is righteous, that they have every right to be consumed by their fury. But anger rarely leads to justice. It only leads to destruction. Anger does not just hurt others. It destroys the person who carries it. It fills the heart with bitterness, with tension, with unrest. A person ruled by anger cannot find peace. Even when they are not lashing out, their mind is still at war. They replay offenses over and over, feeding their fury, reliving their pain. They justify their resentment, refusing to forgive, refusing to let go. But anger is a prison. It chains a person to the past, keeping them locked in a cycle of hurt and revenge. The longer anger is held, the heavier it becomes, until it is all-consuming, controlling thoughts, emotions, even actions. Some anger comes suddenly erupting in a moment, triggered by an offense, an insult, an injustice. It flares up like a fire set to dry grass, raging with intensity before eventually burning out. But other anger is slow burning. It is the kind that simmers beneath the surface, growing stronger over time. It is the unresolved anger of betrayal, of disappointment, of wounds that never healed. This kind of anger is more dangerous because it is not always obvious. It is hidden behind forced smiles, behind silent resentment, behind bitterness disguised as indifference. But it is still there, shaping the way a person thinks, the way they speak, the way they live. Anger can also be passed down. A person who grows up in a home filled with anger often carries it with them. They learn to respond to life with rage, to solve problems with aggression, to treat love as a battlefield. They carry the fire of past generations, repeating the same patterns, creating the same destruction. Anger breeds anger. Hurt people hurt people. Those who have been wounded often wound others. And unless the cycle is broken, it continues, burning through families, through friendships, through entire lives. Anger also deceives. It makes a person feel powerful, righteous, strong. In the heat of the moment, anger gives a sense of control, a rush of energy, a feeling of superiority. But that power is an illusion. Anger does not bring victory, it brings regret. It does not make a person strong, it makes them reckless. It does not prove righteousness, it proves a lack of self-control. Many have destroyed their own lives in a single moment of unchecked anger. Words spoken in rage have ended marriages, broken friendships, ruined reputations. Actions taken in fury have led to violence, to loss, to consequences that can never be undone. Anger also poisons relationships. It builds walls between people, turning small disagreements into lifelong feuds. It makes a person unwilling to listen, unwilling to compromise, unwilling to forgive. It replaces love with hostility, peace with conflict, unity with division. A person controlled by anger cannot maintain healthy relationships because their temper pushes people away. They become difficult to be around, unpredictable, exhausting. Friends grow distant, family members walk on eggshells, love is strained, and in the end, anger leaves a person alone, isolated by the fire they refused to put out. Uncontrolled anger does not just affect the person feeling it, it spreads to everyone around them. It changes the atmosphere of a home, turning it from a place of peace to a place of tension. It affects workplaces, making environments toxic, filled with hostility and resentment. It affects communities, leading to violence, division, hatred. The world is filled with the effects of anger. Wars fought over pride, relationships ruined over offenses, lives lost over moments of uncontrolled rage. Anger, when left unchecked, does not just burn the one who holds it, it sets everything around them on fire. Sin's number 6, sloth, the silent thief of destiny. Sloth is the silent thief of destiny. Unlike other sins that make themselves known through action, sloth is defined by inaction. It is not loud like anger or boastful like pride. It does not strike with force like greed or consume with passion like lust. Instead, it creeps in quietly, disguising itself as comfort, as rest, as an excuse to wait until tomorrow. But tomorrow turns into next week, next month, next year. And before a person realizes it, sloth has stolen their purpose, their potential, and their calling. Sloth is not just laziness. It is a deeper indifference, a spiritual and mental apathy that makes a person unwilling to strive, to grow, to take responsibility for their life. It is not merely the refusal to work hard, but the refusal to care, the surrender to idleness, the avoidance of effort. It convinces a person that doing nothing is better than trying and failing, that staying comfortable is better than stepping into the unknown, that waiting is better than acting. It makes people believe that their goals, their dreams, their God-given purpose can wait. But the truth is, time does not wait. Life moves forward with or without those who choose to stand still. Sloth drains ambition. It whispers that there is always time later, that there is no need to rush, that effort is exhausting and not worth it. It convinces people to put off responsibilities, to neglect their gifts, to waste the days they have been given. But days turn into years, and wasted years turn into regret. A person consumed by sloth looks back on their life and sees missed opportunities, abandoned dreams, talents never developed, goals never pursued. They realize too late that time cannot be reclaimed, that the moments they wasted could have been the very moments that changed their lives. Sloth also robs a person of discipline. It makes simple tasks seem like burdens, turns minor responsibilities into overwhelming challenges. It keeps people from pushing through difficulty, from embracing discomfort, from developing the endurance needed to grow. Success in anything, work, relationships, personal development, requires effort, consistency, and perseverance. But sloth refuses to pay the price. It seeks shortcuts, easy roads, paths that require no sacrifice. And in the end, it leads to nothing. A person ruled by sloth may dream of success, but without action, without work, without effort, those dreams remain just that. Dreams, never reality. Sloth does not just affect a person's external life, it affects their inner life as well. It weakens the spirit, dulls the mind, and creates an emptiness that no amount of entertainment, distraction, or temporary pleasure can fill. A life without purpose, without action, without striving towards something greater becomes a life of quiet misery. Sloth convinces people that doing nothing will bring them peace, but instead it brings frustration, restlessness, and dissatisfaction. The soul longs for purpose, for meaning, for growth, but sloth denies it these things, leaving a person feeling empty, lost, and unfulfilled. Sloth is also a destroyer of faith. It makes a person passive in their relationship with God, content to drift instead of seeking, to remain stagnant instead of growing. It convinces people that they do not need to pray today, that they can read Scripture later, that spiritual growth can wait, but a faith that is not fed grows weak. A relationship with God that is not pursued begins to fade. Sloth does not destroy faith in a moment, it erodes it over time, making a person lukewarm, indifferent, spiritually asleep. It keeps them from stepping into their calling, from using their gifts, from fulfilling the purpose God has placed on their life. Sloth also affects relationships. It makes people passive in their marriages, their friendships, their families. Love requires effort, communication, intentionality. But sloth makes people complacent, unwilling to invest in the people around them. It convinces them that relationships will take care of themselves, that they do not need to put in the work, that their loved ones will always be there no matter how much they neglect them. But relationships that are not nurtured begin to fade. Distance grows. Love weakens. And by the time a person realizes what has happened, the damage has already been done. Sloth also fosters excuses. A person trapped in sloth will always have a reason why they cannot act, why they cannot change, why they cannot move forward. They will blame circumstances, other people, lack of time, lack of energy. But deep down, the real reason is fear. Fear of failure, fear of effort, fear of stepping out of their comfort zone. Sloth is often a disguise for deeper struggles, for insecurities, for a lack of confidence in one's own ability to grow and succeed. But the only way to overcome it is through action, through pushing forward even when it is hard, through doing what needs to be done even when there is no motivation, through refusing to let life pass by in idle waiting. Sloth convinces people that rest is the goal, that ease is the purpose of life, that comfort is what will bring happiness. But true fulfillment does not come from avoiding effort. It comes from striving towards something greater. It comes from pushing beyond limitations, from embracing responsibility, from living with passion and purpose. A life surrendered to sloth is a life half-lived. It is a life of wasted potential, of unfulfilled calling, of regret. The greatest thief of destiny is not failure, not hardship, not opposition. It is inaction. It is waiting for the perfect moment instead of stepping forward in faith. It is believing that tomorrow will always come instead of making the most of today. There is a path that leads to life, and there is a path that leads to destruction. The sins that creep into a person's heart, pride, greed, lust, envy, anger, and sloth, are not just mistakes or flaws. They are forces that work silently, persistently, to pull a person away from their purpose, their calling, their relationship with God. They do not always come with immediate consequences. Often they work in secret, taking hold little by little until a person looks back and realizes how far they have fallen. Pride blinds, making a person believe they need no guidance, no correction, no humility. Greed enslaves, creating a hunger that can never be satisfied, leading a person to chase wealth at the cost of their soul. Lust deceives, promising pleasure but delivering destruction, turning love into selfish desire. Envy poisons, stealing joy and replacing it with bitterness, making a person resentful of the blessings of others. Anger consumes, turning minor offenses into lifelong grudges, destroying relationships and peace. Sloth steals, not in an instant, but over time, robbing a person of their potential, their opportunities, their destiny. The most dangerous thing about these sins is not just what they do to a person, but how easily they can be justified, ignored, or overlooked. They do not always seem destructive at first. Pride can feel like confidence. Greed can look like ambition. Lust can seem like passion. Envy can be mistaken for motivation. Anger can be excused as justice. Sloth can be disguised as rest. But over time, their true nature is revealed. And by the time a person realizes the damage they have done, much has already been lost. But no one is beyond redemption. No one is too far gone. The grip of sin may be strong, but grace is stronger. The weight of past mistakes may be heavy, but forgiveness is greater. There is a way back from destruction, but it requires a choice to turn away from what leads to death and to walk toward what brings life. a choice to humble oneself, to surrender greed, to resist temptation, to let go of resentment, to control anger, to rise above complacency, a choice to seek truth, to embrace discipline, to live with purpose. Life is too short, too precious to be wasted in blindness, in selfishness, in bitterness, in idleness. The days given are not meant to be squandered in regret, but lived in fullness, in purpose, in faith. The battle against these sins is not easy, but it is necessary. And those who choose the right path, those who reject the destruction of pride, greed, lust, envy, anger, and sloth, will find something greater than anything sin could ever offer. They will find peace, they will find purpose, and most importantly, they will find life.